Welcome, everybody. Deb's working on some technical issue, but we'll give her a
We're
second.
good.
Good to go? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for being here with us to talk about the environmental health fee increases discussion. I asked Jamie a while back to come and talk to us about proposed fee increases that were on our they were on our agenda a couple months ago at least, and then they were pulled from our agenda. But in that process, on the meeting, the day they would have happened, we had a bunch of public show up to talk about them because they were on the web, they were on our agenda page, and people had read about it and they were here in opposition. And so, knowing that the public was interested in them and they wanted to know, they wanted the justification for it. They thought it could be harmful to businesses, et cetera. Knowing that there's that public interest, I wanted us to be able to have the discussion with you before it's on our agenda again, so we'll be better prepared to answer people's questions.
Great, thanks. So just kind of a history of environmental health fees. We don't get general funds from the county for environmental health. It's a program that's required by the state through the health department to have. Our program typically runs in the red, so our license fees cover the costs of operations. Um, I license multiple different things throughout the county. Do you want me to go into detail of what those are?
Sure.
So I license food, temporary restaurants, so fairs, festivals, farmers markets, public pools and spas, RV parks, hotels. I do childcare inspections, jails. I do public drinking water systems through a state for the Oregon Health Authority. We do get a little bit of funding for that, but not much. Um, contracts, contract inspections, mobile carts, kind of a smattering of all sorts of things, environmental health related. We take complaints. I also do animal bites, which is communicable disease. We do not get funding from the state for that. It's a requirement. So really fee increases typically have happened annually. I have to go against OHA for a fees justification, and that's why Irene's here. They have a protocol and a procedure that I have to do every year where we plug numbers in and have to write a letter about why, because in statute, most of everything that I do is in statute, requires us to justify why we would increase fees. And so I've already done that for the year. I will start this process again in January with you. I restructured kind of this year based on other counties, Lincoln and Clatsop County, who do get some general fund fees. And so I wanted to kind of be in the middle of them. Some of our fees are a little bit low, some of them are a little bit high in different areas, some are just right in the middle. Different counties have fee structures based on number of rooms. Like in hotels, we kind of did it as a baseline. And so I pulled those out so that they would match Clatsop and Lincoln County structures. Some counties around the state have gone as much as 20% increase this last year in fees because they haven't been increasing annually. We have been increasing annually approximately 4% with the hopes that we probably are not going to catch up, but that we aren't going to do a huge jump in fees as 10% or more. That's not what I'm looking to do. And so the paperwork that you guys have in front of you is what I will submit, is the submittal for the Board of County Commissioners meetings. There's an issue brief, there's OARs, there's remittance fees that we have to pay for the fact that we license and OHA requires that. So it's just kind of a smattering of a bunch of different things.
Thank you. Would you do you want to walk us through the information specifically? Now, it's been a while, so I'm trying to remember exactly what the folks said who came to oppose it. I recall that they pointed out that there was a fee for changing the menu, and I think they said that it had increased from $10 to $100. So So would you just walk us
Sure.
through the large increases?
Not that I remember all of the large increases, but there are some new fee structures on here. So I went with an increase in menu, um, and looking at a menu and a menu change based on other counties and what they did. It was something that we never did here. But what I'm running into in collaboration with the building department and other departments is that many times we will open a restaurant that says that they're not going to do any, they're doing cold sandwiches and charcuterie boards. And then we walk in for their first semi-annual inspection and they've installed ovens with no hoods. They are doing full service cook from raw product to, um, things that might require special variances from the state that they have to go through. And we don't really have a way to come back and say, okay, now, without getting more enforcement involved, you have to stop what you're doing. The menu that you submitted with your application was a menu that we approved with your plan review. And so that fee would be for something like a major, like if you don't have a full service restaurant already that has the required cooking equipment that has been vetted by the fire marshal and the building department, then you're going to have to go in for a review, a plan review for your menu. Does that make sense?
It does. I don't remember that it was described that way in the previous document.
It's not, because this is just funding. This is just saying it will be in our applications, but this is just what we're showing you for a fee increase. I have 10 different applications that have different verbiage on them for what people apply for licensure wise. So if you're not applying for a restaurant license, you probably don't understand what these fees mean. Does that make sense?
Not entirely. So I think I'm just not speaking your language yet. So when
Or
we
vice
look-
versa?
right. When we looked at the form, when it went that the day that it was on our agenda, we looked at the form. It looked like it said, and it's not this one, so it was a different form.
Okay.
It said change of menu. Previously $10, currently $100. And so in my mind, that could have meant like, a food cart changes their menu or any menu change. I mean, it didn't.
It's not any menu change per se, but it's at my discretion. And lots of restaurants will say, hey, we're going to go to a seasonal, because I also have to vet and approve that, make sure that they're using an approved source of food, that they're not using, like they're not making food at their house. Most restaurants, most mobile carts know this. Mobile carts aren't allowed to do the same things restaurants are, and they know that when they apply with us. Mobile carts are built to be menu dependent. If they change their menu and they can't do what they say they're doing safely in a mobile cart, then they have to get a restaurant license on top of that, and it's called a commissary. That's all laid out in their plan review when they apply for a license. So if you're not doing food or food service and you're coming in and looking at this from, I'm just raising fees, there is a justification and a reason, and it's all laid out when somebody applies.
Okay, I guess I'm still confused about why the jump from 10 to 100.
It
Is
was
that
never
accurate?
10,
Okay,
it was 0.
okay.
It's because I spend quite a bit of time vetting people's emails and responses from the public for different things. So I always say, if you're going to change your menu, send it to me, I'll look at it. That is a discretionary number to 100, and I can reduce that. It's been approved by OHA, but if I don't implement that, then that's okay. So if we need to start out lower, but it's just a safeguard to know, for people to know that really they can't be willy-nilly just changing a menu to do whatever they want once they get licensed. Does that make more sense?
I'm following you, yes. Well, keep talking. What other changes?
Like I said, changes to hotels, motels. They used to be, motels used to be like 25 to 50 rooms was one fee. Now we have broken it out from 1 to 10 rooms because we have a lot of smaller hotels. to, 76 to 100 rooms. And we did that based on the fact that short-term rentals have kind of taken over this county. We don't have a ton of hotels, traditional hotels anymore. I don't get a lot of funding from this. And I'm not saying I'm doing this as a funding revenue source, but I am going to try and be like other counties. So there's a justification and people don't question why an OHA says, why aren't you doing it this way more so? I don't have to do it that way, but I'd like to do it this way moving forward. And so that's why I called this a restructure year instead of going with a straight 4% across the board. So that's a bigger one. Mobile carts did go up. We are seeing an increase in mobile carts in the county. And I have gotten a lot of feedback from restaurants that say, well, how come I get charged way more for a restaurant than a mobile cart gets charged annually? Well, a couple of different reasons. Mobile carts aren't restaurants. Mobile carts can't do the same things restaurants get to do. It doesn't take as much time to do necessarily a mobile cart as it does to do a large restaurant. And so my restaurant fees are average to low for our county across the board. Other counties are much more expensive than we are for a restaurant license. We went a few years ago, I think this went through the county commissioners for a benevolent, for temporary restaurant licenses, adding some benevolent restaurant fees on top of that, which we never used to charge a benevolent organization for a temporary restaurant license. I get anywhere from 250 to 350 of those a year. So they actually take quite a bit of time to go over. And so we have implemented that, and we did last year. And there was like a 2-year period where we just kind of advertised it that we were going to do it before we implemented that. I think that that stays the same if you can get it in, 2 weeks in advance. But we did up late fees or, because we are getting applications, days before an event, and I have to have an inspector ready to work on a weekend when they didn't think they were going to. So we're a 7-day-a-week program per state standards, but that's not always feasible. So those are the biggest changes. So overall, and you can see in comparison to current fees to Tillamook County to other fees, it says average, low, high. And these are the current fees for Clatsop County. Clatsop County went up. I think that their increase in fees, although they were very, very, very low, they went up 400% in their mobile cart fees. But they did not, it's still pretty much below ours. So I don't ever want to do a 400% increase on anything.
Commissioners, do you have questions?
Well, I do. First thing you said was you're in the red. Now, is that under the current year or what you're restructuring for 2025?
Both.
So why would you build a fee structure that keeps you in the red?
I don't want to build a fee structure that'll keep me in the red. But if I build a fee structure that will bring me into the green,
Black's the correct term.
sorry, black, then you're going to have a bigger public outcry than what's happening now.
So how is this subsidized and for about how much?
No, Irene off the top. Irene Jones, she's our county
Hmm.
manager and finance
Yes.
officer.
What the deficit is?
So Irene,
Yeah.
can you also make sure you've got a microphone? Because otherwise the folks online can't hear and it's very
Yeah,
frustrating when
round-
you're watching
round-
us and you just go to,
Round numbers then, what's coming, where's the money coming from and about how much then to make or break even?
Currently, most of their income comes from their fees, and they're short. I think the last year was like, it's been 30,000, it's up to like 50 plus now. Negative.
So where does that money come from? The 50? I mean, obviously you're not issuing checks that bounce. So
Right. Yeah,
so where does the 50, what's the source of the 50,000?
that's when we do adjustments and we have to pull it out of our reserves.
And
Health
if you-
department.
and you can't do that forever, because in 10 years, that'd be $500,000, current dollars. So why, these people you're investigating, and maybe that's not the right term, the people you're inspecting
Sure,
are in business to make profit, and this is the cost of doing business.
correct.
And I remember paying this for 23 years on my properties, and I don't remember what the fee was, but that was the cost of doing business. Why would we structure a fee structure that puts the county in a deficit position when this, you have to do this as a matter of law, as I understand, health department and certain other requirements. It's a fixed cost of business to a business to have it inspected by the local health department. So I'm wondering, why couldn't you find another $50,000? And I realize you get some pushback. But still, if you're going to be in business, you have to comply with local codes and rules and zoning and everything else. And if they don't like it, and I'm a business-based person, but I also don't want to see the county lose money on a particular program if there's not a good reason. And you said the reason is you'd get too much pushback and they'd be unhappy. Well, maybe they're not charging enough for their hot dogs. I don't know.
Well, I think it's twofold. I think we're in, I think you hear this all the time. We're in a rural county.
Mhm.
Most of our facilities are not chains, right?
Mhm,
We have
correct.
most mom
Yeah,
and pop shops.
Pops. Mhm.
So they're also not, they're trying to make a profit, but at the same time, they're trying to follow the rules and regulations that they're adhering to, right? Or that I have to make them adhere to. I don't want to have to charge them an exorbitant amount of fee to run business too, because of overhead. Everything is getting more expensive. So this is kind of the happy medium we've come up with. If you're telling me that next year when I do this with you guys again, I up it more, I can. But at this point, I feel like 4% with cost of living increases moving forward, it's not sustainable, but I don't know what else to do at this point.
Well, I think your numbers from what I can see, and I guess I could say, well, why are we lower than Clatsop, or why are they higher, or why are we higher? All those, and I'm not interested in nitpicking for my part. But it just seems to me that a program should strive to be self-sufficient, and you're not,
I don't
by your
disagree
own
with that.
admission.
But also, she told us that the comparators, Lincoln and Clatsop, get
Yeah.
get funded from the general fund.
And that's true, and
probably the difference.
exactly, and that's correct, and that's a good point, and I don't think Tillamook County's in a position to do that.
Correct.
So, I'm just asking the question, maybe I need to understand it better, and I appreciate that these are mom and pops. I was one, and $50 is $50. It means quite a bit sometimes, particularly in the middle of February. But by the same token, there's something the health department is not doing that it could do with that money, or it's doing without, or your reserves are lower than you would like, or whatever. In other words, $50,000 is coming from somewhere because it's a cost. I don't know. Let me ask Marlene what she thinks. She's in charge of the whole bloody works. So,
I think this has been a concern that has grown over the years. It didn't just happen in a few years.
that's-
So the increasing costs, the increase in people who are needing the kind of support that we provide through environmental health services has grown. Fees vary across the state of Oregon, as you can see, even just in the 2 counties we have for comparators. And there was not necessarily the willingness of people who were in your seats previously to say, we need to make a bigger increase or have any charge for benevolent organizations. So it can fluctuate for those reasons as well. We have included the anticipated cost for environmental health in the reserve fund, as Irene mentioned, to cover that. So when we say, oh, $50,000, or whether it's 50 or 50,000, something isn't being done. So we have a HVAC system, could be $500,000. $50,000 makes a big difference. You need to repair something in the facility that houses environmental health. Those funds do have an impact across the board. So we have, because of this need and the county's responsibility to provide environmental health services, we've continued to do this, but we're seeing kind of the same growth that other people are with the cost of living. There was more of a jump in the last few years in terms of the cost that we're bearing on behalf of environmental health. So increasing, starting to follow more closely where other counties are, can help to get to that zero sum. But we're not there yet. So how long do we carry that? Do we cut back services? Where does the county overall want us to sit with those things? The issues are bigger when you have more organizations.
Well, thank you. Those are, I understand, I think, what you're saying, and I don't even disagree with it. I'm just wondering, since you're non-general fund to begin with, if you could find a way to balance each program, but you've explained that's not always the reality. And also, I understand you have some market forces as well. You can't, just because something costs $1,000 to do it, doesn't mean you can recapture that, or you're out in the real world every day as well, and I understand that. But so it was a question that seemed like $50,000 as big picture is not a lot of money. On the other hand, if every program said, well, we're not going to quite cover our costs, then you got a really big problem.
We do have other programs, and so that on the public health side that don't quote unquote cover their costs, which is partly why it was true 30 years ago. It's true now. So the fees, I shouldn't say fees, the funding that is appropriated for public health at the state level for rural counties or just the population base plus doesn't always meet what those costs are. So we created this integrated federally qualified health center so that the fees generated by other services and federal funds can help cover where there's a deficit and our community doesn't suffer for lack of a full range of service. If we didn't have that, you'd have a public health nurse available 1 day a week to, meet with clients. You'd have home visiting, you'd have 1.5 nurses. So that was a compromise. I shouldn't say compromise. It was a way to leverage.
I know, and I get that, and I think to your everlasting credit, all of you, is your budget's in balance from the big picture. In other words, you have cross, well, okay.
But it's there.
There was a time, and I remember a few years back, but that's another story. But what I'm saying, you have presented every year to the budget committee a balanced budget. And so you've used managerial discretion to subsidize those programs that didn't quite make it to do what you consider the higher purpose, meaning let's have a medical professional there every day. And I think that's good. So I'm not criticizing the thing. The program as a whole. You guys are great. I'm just saying, here's one program that, by your own admission, is not covering your own costs. And so I just was asking why. But
Yeah.
the answer is you've moved money around and your checks clear the bank. So
And we thank you
I
for
want to say
that.
it's good.
So Commissioner-elect Fournier is in the back of the room and he has a question. Why don't you come up here and pull out the table and join us?
Oh,
Yeah, come on.
take a mic.
There's a chair. All right.
I move the table out so you.
No. So I was just curious, the two other examples, the comparators, they have money coming in from the general fund to help balance it. Do we know statewide, is there any of these environmental health divisions, whatever that actually create enough revenue to fund themselves?
Yes,
Which one, are they bigger counties?
yes. Much bigger counties.
Okay, so their fees do cover all of it.
Yeah, so like Multnomah and Washington, they pretty much are in the black. So they also get funding from other different sources. So not all environmental health programs do what I do. So environmental health specialists or registered environmental health specialists. So some programs, their septic and on-site is actually all one program. So they do food, pool, lodging, drinking water. Some do air quality, some do solid waste. Some do radon testing, some have their on-site septic programs all combined into one. And so it seems like the programs that have on-site septic and food, pool, and lodging all as one tend to be in the black a little bit more. For whatever reason, 20 plus years ago, I think our county decided to separate those out. I don't know the history on it, to be quite honest. So, but other counties that are in the black, some of them, like I said, do other things. Like Lincoln County does, the Lincoln County Environmental Health Program Manager also does the solid waste program. So
You're
not,
saying they have more fees coming in for
they may
different.
get more fees coming in for that, for the food pool and lodging program, just on those fees, but they also get funding from other programs that they manage within environmental health.
Okay, with counties similar in size and makeup of hours, do you know of any that are in the black? Besides Lincoln or that do similar work that you're doing? I guess the
don't.
point I'm trying to make is it seems like it's kind of a losing proposition for it to fund itself. And we can't just keep raising, my concern is raising fees on,
Yeah.
we don't have chain restaurants, Lincoln County
Sure.
does.
Yep.
Good question, for sure.
So that
Yeah.
was, I mean, you answered it. It just seems like it's a losing proposition and.
I can look into that more of the, and ask other counties. I know, like the question that I asked was more, do you receive general funds more than do you operate? I think to some extent, a lot of environmental health programs lose money in operation, but they're just like us. They end up being in the black because they're
Partnered
funded
with
other way.
somebody.
The
Yeah,
other
they're
thing-
partnered with somebody.
The other
We've
thing I-
partnered with public health, and
Sure.
it sounds like they partner with other departments in other
Yes.
counties.
The other thing I would wonder is TLT, as these are restaurants and they are tourism facilities. Do you know of any counties that perhaps use TLT money to help offset that cost or to backfill the shortage?
Some may. I think during COVID, some of the counties got some TLT funding. I also know that some counties during COVID also were told that they were going to get general funds. And so they cut back their environmental health fees because they were told that they would get general funds to make up for it and then never did. That money actually went someplace else.
I mean, I think raising the fees goes in what we're talking about, fee-based stuff. But I am curious if you can find out if there's other counties that have used, I don't need the answer today, but that would be something that,
Yeah, is transient lodging tax allowed,
yeah, is it allowed? It seems like it should be, but
which doesn't mean it would be.
doesn't mean it is. Well, I mean, we
Right.
can try it and then they
Right,
can
sure.
fight it, but
Yeah.
anyways, okay, thank you.
Thank
That's all I had.
Sure. I would just like to thank Jamie for being here, and I want to thank Jamie for doing her job. So being the liaison to the health department and therefore to public health and therefore to the environmental side of this, I get the inside peek into how hard her job is. So I want to take a minute to thank Jamie because it's really hard. People don't understand. And to your point, Commissioner Bell, when you read it in its shortened form, it makes zero sense whatsoever. And it's in statute. And Jamie doesn't have a choice about so much of what she does. So she works exceptionally hard to make sure that we stay out of trouble with the state by making sure that we're following the rules. She works really hard to try to help people understand why they have to pay what they have to pay and have to do what they have to do when it's not obvious and it's not clear based on statute. So I want to start with that because this is a really hard job. I want to go on to thank you for looking at the restructure piece of this, for taking a deeper dive. I think it's easy to take fees that we have and say, we're going to add 4%, we're going to add 4%. And we need to do that. We have to try to keep up and listen until we find another funding source, right? We have partnered with the health department, but we can't, with the FQHC side of it, we can't continue to just always assume that there will be a never-ending pool there so that we can freeze these and hold it. We can't. We have to keep pace with the economy and keep pace with inflation. But I do appreciate you doing the deeper dive and really looking and saying, what are our neighbors doing? Because what our neighbors are doing is important because that's who our businesses are talking to, right? They're talking to people in an adjacent county and saying, is this the same for you? So it's helpful to have that look at how we compare. I think it's helpful. I mean, we actually reduced in the smaller motels, recognizing what is true for our community and how do we do the best job in being fair and reasonable to our community.
when we look at the structure. So I appreciate the work that you've done, and I do understand it is complicated, and I do understand that more than anything, if we're going to do this, commissioners, we have to be really clear and in support, because there will be, on anything that has an increase, a blowback from the community, and that will be a blowback that Jamie has to take, and it's one that we have to be prepared, I think, as well, to stand behind if as we move forward. So it is complex. If I've learned nothing else than sitting in that chair and getting emails from Jamie that says, you're going to get a call, and here's why. And then going through to understand the why myself is complicated. So just appreciate that work that you do. And I think we do need to make sure we're comfortable, because there will be uncomfortable conversations for anything that has an increase.
Thank you for that, Erin.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I've answered Commissioner Bell's questions, though. I feel like you still feel.
You're totally right. So thank you for that. I am listening thoughtfully to your explanations, and also to all of my colleagues, but I have no concerns about increasing fees 4% a year, because I think that's perfectly reasonable. And it's in line with work that we're doing with a consultant named Mike Gleason, who you may or may not be aware of. He's helping us look at how to restructure our budget, et cetera. And he's talking about finding the appropriate fees, and then increasing them by 3, et cetera, % per year, every year, no matter what, because it's a problem that a lot of government organizations have, that they don't do it regularly, and then they have to make the big leap that you were talking about.
Mhm.
And so I'm fully supportive of making regular incremental increases. I think the big leaps that will likely hurt small businesses are harder to justify, and maybe there are only a few of those. Maybe the specifically I don't even see it on this form, but the changing your menu, is it on this form? The changing the menu fee to go from 0 to 100, it'll be very hard for us to justify that.
It's on the second page under plan reviews.
Full service restaurant remodel or menu change. It's right at the
Correct.
bottom there,
So it's
third row up.
It's a
from the bottom.
twofold. So if you want to do a remodel in your restaurant anyway, I mean, that's in statute, that you have to put in plan reviews with our office. And so I added or menu change because other counties have that as well. So typically, and that's at my discretion, a menu change. Like if somebody sends me something and they're like, I'm adding I'm adding a burger and I already have a full hood that complies with fire and building codes. Great, add a burger. I don't care. But if you have nothing in your restaurant and you're like, I'm changing my menu now to, like I said, cook from raw, adding burgers, do all that things, then that triggers me that they need to now contact the building official, put plans in with them, do other things that meet all the code for our county, state, and for licensing regulations. That doesn't mean I'm going to charge them $100 for that at this point, but that could be what happens. And there's lots of people that send me things on a regular basis, and I would say, great, looks good, send them an email back and don't charge them for that. But moving forward, that is staff time to be able to review all of those things. And so there are so many things that we don't charge and have not charged for in the past that could help make up the deficit in staffing time. And that's one of them. So all other facilities or menu change also has a 0 next to it, and that's the next one down. So it's at, some fees, and Commissioner Scar knows this too, like in extenuating circumstances, I waive fees for benevolent organizations, for late fees sometimes when I work with event organizers. So this isn't a hard set. I do treat everybody the same, but this is not a, like if you're applying for a restaurant license, yes, this is what you pay. But on things like this, Sometimes they happen and sometimes they don't, and I'm not a hard set on it just to make money. I will work with the person that's working with me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But does it reassure business owners who are looking at this saying, wow, why is it going up 500%?
It probably does not reassure business owners of that, but
I mean, because obviously you can't promise people like, maybe I'll charge you or maybe I won't, because that's not going to be fair to
Sure.
the people you do charge.
sure. And I get that too. And if we need to slash it and say $50 for the next however many years, so people get used to it, I'm fine with that as well. If that's a recommendation that you guys have moving forward. But there will be a fee associated with it moving forward.
I mean, I feel like part of what we're also asking departments to do is to look at the areas where they spend a lot of time and don't get reimbursed. And I think what I'm hearing you say, Jamie, is that when you look at from efficiency perspective, there's a lot of time spent on this. And when there is a huge change that requires an actual physical kitchen change, that we're not recouping that.
Correct.
That's what this is trying to do, is to recoup that piece when there's an actual kitchen change. It allows us to do that part because it does require a lot of work on your part when they do move from what they can do in a cold kitchen to what they can do in a full kitchen.
Correct.
And that's what we're trying to recoup here.
But there is no differentiation between a cold kitchen and a hot kitchen except for equipment. And so for us to catch that,
Yeah.
So is it here on the back of page 2, full service restaurant remodel or menu change, all other facilities remodel or menu change? Do I understand you correctly that what you're really saying is that you're trying to catch businesses that are operating without the proper equipment?
correct. Part of it.
Okay. So is there a different way to say that as opposed to just menu change? Because just calling it a menu change makes it seem like we're discouraging restaurants from having seasonal menus, or we're discouraging restaurants from being creative, or we're discouraging restaurants from, like, we want people to have a set menu and leave us alone. But I totally get what you're saying, that people need to have the equipment they should have. So is there a different way to say it to
I
get it?
can. This is what other counties use as well. So and the consistency going between counties, that's what I was using. So I can rephrase that and put it something different on there.
I mean, can you, like, I realize we're just spitballing here, but
No, you're fine.
is there a way that you can say that gets at what you really want?
It would be long and winded, but yes.
Long and winded.
Maybe we could work on some like 4 examples and put it at the bottom with an asterisk.
Mhm.
Sure,
Asterisks on there to say,
absolutely.
So who backs you up when you're out ill or traveling or whatever?
Backs me up.
Yeah, do you have another person in your,
not me, don't do be calling me.
Like if
I mean-
if I have a problem in a restaurant,
no.
On
If
vacation.
you're out of, you take a 2-week vacation and somebody wants to add hamburgers to his tuna fish menu,
who takes a 2-week vacation in my position?
How many?
well, I
people
don't
in
know,
your
but
department?
you know,
Not Jamie.
all right,
She
let's,
works on all her vacations.
Yeah,
I mean,
ask Commissioner Scar.
I
Um,
say, don't email
I
me, it'll be
have-
fine.
Right now I have a full-time inspector position open. I technically have another full-time inspector position open, but I am utilizing a retired REHS who has come back gracefully and is helping me part-time up to 19 hours a week, but they work when they want to work, and I'm grateful for that. And then I have a REHS who is a temp out of BBSI who helps me with temporary weekend work. And once again, they also can deny. They can say yes or no that they want to work. And then it's me full-time and I do it all.
so what is that equivalent to then? About 2.5 FTE?
And yeah, I don't think it's even 2 with the 2 part-time people, maybe
No,
one.
How many facilities are there if you add up round numbers, all the motels, restaurants, everything that you go through the doorway?
full-time licenses, probably around 250, and that doesn't include temporary restaurant applications.
Those restaurants and motels.
Yeah, and then
Water systems.
not water systems, not communicable disease that I do, and not temporary restaurants.
So sounds to me you're spread pretty thin.
I'm
Yes.
tired, we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And I would say that environmental health folks are similar to surveyors in a lot of ways, that there are very, very few of them out there.
Correct.
And so, you can't do what Jamie does without the licensure that she has. You can't just hire someone off the street and say, hey, Jamie's going to show you how to do it and back you up. I mean, this is one of those very complicated positions to fill and to keep filled, and one that runs into some of the huge issues of our pay structure, because they can make a lot more money in our neighboring counties who just pay a lot more for everything else. But when there are only a very, very few of them available in the market, it's hard for us to get one and keep one. So yeah, Jamie carries a very heavy load.
Mhm. Well, I know that, and I've heard from others. And so let's say that somebody calls on Monday morning and says, okay, I'm adding this type of unit to my kitchen, and can you have a look at it? How far out might that be?
Well, there's some grace there, because if they want to add a unit to the kitchen, more than likely they're going to also have to go through the building department, and I will refer them to the building department, and we will work collaboratively, because that will require most likely a mechanical, plumbing, or electrical.
Well, let's say then they want to change their menu. What I'm trying to get is how far out, what are your commitments?
My commitments are that if I'm in the office, I return a phone call, probably, I say 48 hours, but more than likely you get a phone call within 24 hours of leaving a message on my voicemail. I also have sorry, I forgot about Allison. I have a part-time, a 0.5 FTE office specialist that helps. But I am committed to responding to the public within 24 to 48 hours if somebody leaves me a
But
voicemail.
that's
and/or-
responding, that's not physically going down and doing whatever you have to do.
If I have to physically go out of the office, then I just work long days, and that's just what happens. That's part of the job.
Well, I'm just wondering what kind of pushback the county would get, you or the county. If somebody's ready to do something on Monday, is it 3 weeks out? And if it's in the middle of summer, that might be a problem in terms of what they're doing, their cash flow and all of that.
If somebody has not been working with me up front and they expect me to call me and within 24 hours to me be on site, that's not feasible for anybody in the county as a county employee. So they need to realize that there is a wait, but it's less than 2 weeks for me to get to you.
Okay, well, seems to me that you're spread pretty thin, even though you've got some other help, but they just said it's not even 2.0 FTE. And we've got all these facilities, and not only do we have a lot of them, they're 75 miles apart, some of them.
Yep.
Yep.
So, okay.
Yep. If anybody's
Okay,
got a
well,
good idea of
I'll-
where to find someone to fill that position, please refer them quickly to the county.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's not, it's not an easy position. I understand that. And I've had people complain to me, not even as a commissioner, just saying, boy, that county, it takes forever. Or, I can't do this, or they're holding me up. And, it's a piece of conversation that comes up every so often. And
If you ever have somebody that says you're holding them up and they've contacted any one of you, you're more than welcome to call me and I'll tell you why.
okay, fair enough.
It is very similar to what we find in community development, where folks
Sure.
have not submitted the full amount of information that is needed, or they don't like what's being asked of them, so they will submit the parts that they think they need to submit, and they will omit the parts they don't want to submit, and then they will become very upset and angry.
Correct.
So it is a challenge, and reminding us that this is a state statute-driven process, just like community development is, where people blame the county for what the state has basically mandated us to do. And this is another generally unfunded mandate from the state of Oregon that we have risen to the challenge of trying to meet. And it is complicated.
I just want to add that I don't want to paint the picture that everybody who's trying to run a temporary establishment or restaurant or complaining and not complying or not submitting the correct forms. People are working really hard to try to comply, and the rules are confusing. And so in being responsive, as Jamie described it, really helps to address some of that. And there are some that are difficult or very difficult, but it's not, I don't even know if recently, if you call law enforcement for backup when you go out, sometimes you worry about safety and people that get angry, but it's not the vast majority of folks by any stretch. So, they are wanting and are supportive and thankful for the safety aspect as well as the responsiveness. So I don't want people to think,
Sure.
all those bad people, that's not accurate.
Yeah, we have great operators, like I encourage a collaborative process. If they have questions, I want them to call me. I'd rather us work together than me show up and, it's not comfortable to have, a horrible inspection when there's a restaurant full of people and, we try to make it as smooth as possible. So, and I'm happy to answer questions offline too, if that needs to be.
Well, I think I understand a lot more about your job than I did before we started this conversation, so thank you for that. I feel like some of the big jumps, we're still going to have trouble justifying, and I just wonder if we need to take if we could take a smaller jump.
I mean, we can, and we can talk about that. If you want to do that, we can. That's not up to me. You guys have to approve what I put in front of you.
Commissioner Bella, are there others besides the one we've talked about that you specifically have noted that are huge jumps that are concerning to you?
Well, the small business, like the mobile units,
So the mobile unit that's going, so mobile units are going, the commissary is 306 going to 319. So those are actually for the most part, the class 3 mobile unit is the biggest jump, 308 to 437, because it looks like we're starting to categorize probably different classes of mobile units. They were all 308 previously. And now we've kind of split those out. So is that what you were talking about, or is there a different? one I'm missing
365
it?
to 500.
Right, because
Yeah.
we've moved the class, because the class 4 mobile.
Yeah, I guess just in general, so in some of them, especially the ones with new fees, the jumps are significant, and it's just, I think it's easier for businesses to plan for a gradual increase, and people expect it. People expect a gradual increase.
So I'm just going to point out that based on Clatsop and Lincoln counties, like a mobile unit commissary, we went to average after a jump, and same with a class 4, it's average. But Clatsop County's charging for a class 3 mobile cart $788 and a class 4 $788, and Lincoln's at $390. They will increase next year as well. And I think they're going to increase even more. So mobile carts are kind of a point of contention with restaurant owners, because restaurant owners pay quite a bit for a license, although they can do more. But with mobile carts coming in, they think that they're cutting into their costs. So I'm trying to be equitable in a way with mobile carts and restaurants to try and split the demand here. That's kind of where some of my justification is coming in, if that helps you.
Well, yes, of course, restaurants have a higher overhead. Of course they do. I would assume, maybe I could be totally wrong, but I would assume that mobile carts also have they're less profitable. But
I
it probably
would not.
depends on the cart and
Yeah.
depends on the restaurant.
No, if you found your niche in your mobile cart, you are making, I'm not saying you're making millions, but you're doing well.
And how many class 4 mobile units do we have out there? Just an estimate. Is that a large number?
Yes, actually, like
Is that
90% of
what
our
most
mobile
of them are
carts are
class 4s?
class 4s.
Yeah.
And I can send you guys the different, class 1 mobile cart is basically prepackaged food cart. Class 2 is a hot dog cart. Class 3, you can't cook from raw product. Class 4 is a fully functioning cook from raw type 1 hood, requirements in them. And that's what 90% of our carts are, is a class 4.
That include the ones over here on Second Story, First Street?
Yep. I believe all of them. Yes, all of them are a class 4.
And Garibaldi at that gathering up there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, all of those are class 4s.
Well, now I know what a class 4 is. That's
Learn something new every day in this
Right.
job, I tell you.
not even 5 o'clock yet either.
No.
What kind of pushback do you get from these people if they're new in business, or, they've got everything they need and the equipment is good and they know what they're doing, but here they come into Tillamook County. What kind of pushback are you getting, if any?
You mean if they come from another county?
Yeah, they come in and say, yeah, we moved over here and I'm going to set this here. I've made arrangements for the lot and all of that. And then you come along, they say, well, what happens when you meet them for the first time?
So the mobile carts, so that's kind of interesting, and I'll use mobile carts as an example. In 2020, the state redid the mobile cart rules. They revamped them. They went through a public review process. There was industry involved. It took like 3 or 4 years. They're actually thinking about doing this again. So class 4 mobile carts, well, any class mobile carts in 2020s, the rules changed for them. And so we have a lot of mobile carts trying to come in from out of the county that no longer meet the licensing requirements. They don't have what they need in the cart. They're being sold to unsuspecting people, which is unfortunate. So they come here and they say, hey, we're going to license this mobile cart. It was licensed in another county. I said, great. What was the name of the cart? Who was the owner? I contact that county. That county says, yep, they sold that cart because it's no longer up to code. So now I have to work with this individual to bring it up to code. But our county isn't unique in the mobile cart area, because whether you're an incorporated county or in an incorporated city, each incorporated city has different rules and regulations for mobile carts, and unincorporated Tillamook County does as well. So not only am I working with them to meet the mobile cart rules that OHA requires, I'm also working with the cities in unincorporated Tillamook County to make sure that they're up to their code. Plus, I'm working with the fire departments to make sure I'm up to their code. Plus, I'm working with the utility districts, because each individual city and unincorporated Tillamook County have different requirements for FOG, which is fats, oils, and greases. So some require grease interceptors in the carts, depending on where they're located, and some don't. On top of that, we are along a major ODOT Highway 101. So ODOT gets involved, because ODOT will have recommendations for right-of-way pulling off of streets to be with mobile carts. So right now, I'm in the final stages of working with somebody who has been working for 2 years. Well, this is the second one that's been working for 2 years to try and get licensed with their cart to jump through everybody's hoops, including mine. Although mine have been relatively simple for one, and for the other one, it has not been simple. So, I'm very aware that there's a lot of red tape when it comes to opening a business, and I'm not interested in putting up more roadblocks. I'm interested in working with other departments and with the cities and county to make sure that everything goes smoothly.
But at the end of the day, we have to pay your salary and the salary of anyone we can ever find to help you. Which, right.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, but from that perspective, you did a lot of work to go through and do some restructure, which brought some costs down, it brought some costs up.
Correct.
And at some point, I think as a county, there is a point where we bite the bullet and say, we know this year is going to be challenging because we have gotten in alignment with our region in relation to what the cost is to do business.
Correct. And that's why I called it restructuring.
Correct. And I think from that perspective, this is a one-time cost. This is something that they're going to pay, they're going to go out, they're going to recoup that cost through the business that they do. And there are only about 3, I think maybe 4 items on here that have a significant, change in that way. The majority of these, there's an increase, some of them there's a decrease. But it's other than that, the class 4 mobile is a fairly large increase. The RV park 101 spaces is a fairly large increase. You know, so there are a couple of these that, yeah, it's $100 more or $200 more. But those are also some of your larger, you know, your bigger capacity items.
How about the consultation for professional services, which was free before and now it's 150?
Consultation for professional services, like I mentioned before, a lot of my time is handed out free for planning people's businesses, to be quite honest. And so I kind of went with a new consultation fee based on other counties and what they do, but also based on community development. And they put in a fee here in the last year that if you want to have a meeting, and I sit in a lot of meetings, pre-application meetings with community development, that you have to pay for the time and services. Like if you email me and ask me where an application is, our applications have lots of information in it. Great, I'll send it to you, or I'll direct you to our website. But if I have to sit down with your contractor, your architect, your, you know, whatever, and we have to have a meeting to go over all of this, then I'm charging you for your time, because that's time that I can be out inspecting too. So that's a pretty typical fee that other counties charge for environmental health.
And I know that in community development, if they actually have a project that goes back against their project fee, are you putting it back against the fee if they do move forward or not?
I
Not
would
in this
not.
case.
No, I've changed some things in recent years where we used to give back application fees. Like if something didn't happen, but if I put in all the time and done the full plan review, and then for whatever reason you decide you don't want to open your business, I'm out that time. I'm also out that money. So that's not something I'm giving back at this point.
But were you just saying the opposite, that if people do go forward with their business, then that fee then that,
That community development gets applied to whatever they're doing.
I can do that.
So that it is encouraging folks, it's like, come talk to us, because in fact, that does make it easier for them and for us, right? If they have that
Sure.
conversation rather than submitting a partial application and then it rolls against their application fee, because then you've got everything you need ideally right there, and you don't have to go the back and forth. I realize it's a little different when you're talking about go and then still having to go out on site, et cetera.
Sure. I probably could push it to their licensing for the next year is like a discount opposed to giving them back the fee, because
Yeah, and they
for
don't give
our
it.
licensing, you have to pay up front. And based in statute, our licenses run January 1st to December 31st. So I can't really,
Yeah.
there's not a way for me to say, okay, you went through with the project. Now I'm going to, through fiscal, we can't just refund.
Yeah, because they don't refund. They just apply it against the permit fee. Something to consider.
I
Sure.
think that's it's a good incentive, because it's a benefit both to you and to the business to get all their ducks in a row, you know, to get the full information about what they're going to need before they get started.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And then in the situation that they don't follow through, then your time hasn't been for free for someone who's in a planning phase who then says, never mind. Because that one we do keep and we don't apply against any future, because there isn't a future. And that's really what the community development piece did as well, is for the people who are thinking about buying a piece of property who come in and use a bunch of staff time and then don't, you know,
Okay.
that then, so it's a piece to think about.
I can rephrase that as well.
Well, speaking of taking up your time, I don't need to take up more of your time today, but what I would like to do is look this over and then just, over the next week or so, be able to just call you or email you if I have more questions.
Absolutely. This is on the docket for the 10-2, the OCC board, and I am running up against a time crunch here where I have to work with the state to get final fees adjusted in our inspection system. That's not something we can do here. So I have to make an appointment with them, and our renewal notices will go out at the beginning of November. So that's why we're making this final push.
Okay. So I'll look it over in the next couple of days and get back to you.
Sorry.
And that's okay. And for that meeting, I would like to request that you be present, if not in the room, at least online to be able to respond to people and answer questions if people show up with questions.
I believe all three of us will be present.
I think so.
Okay. Do you want us in person or would you rather us be virtual?
Up to you. I think you can definitely answer questions virtually.
Okay.
I appreciate in-person conversation with you today. Thank you very much for being here. Yeah, but up to you.
Okay.
In person is sometimes nice. Sometimes people then see you as the person, but it's up to you. You know,
Nobody sees
Probably
you as a
who they
person.
are.
Come on.
you probably know who they are that's going to show up. You're probably
Okay.
going to be not surprised, but yeah, it's entirely up to you. It's the three of you, how you feel best about it.
Okay. We may be together in one room, so if, I
Mhm.
know Irene is up against some time crunches too, so I'm grateful for her time, so we may have to do it virtually.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
One more question. How much, I haven't looked at your budget lately. How much does this generate over a year? Roughly?
What their fees are.
I mean, within the nearest 20,000 bucks. So is this like a 250,000 or 180,000?
Broken out in our budgets, we can look at it.
I know, okay. All right, I'll look at
Budget
it.
committee for 20 years.
I just said I had.
No, it would be Doug.
We can also send it right after.
Well, no, I can look it up. I'm just curious. I have a budget sitting up there, obviously, but, so, okay, well, okay, then we'll go on to the next.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It is, yeah, it's a
Appreciate
lot
the
of work.
conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay.
Are you late? Oh, plenty of time.
What starts at
Almost.
4?
Oh, I don't have to go to that one because I'm not applying. You're applying. Thank you all.
Thank you. It was great to have a, yeah, thank you.
It's complicated. I say that and I learn more and I just continue to use that word.
Okay, Doug,
Thank you for dinner.
all right. Next on our list is Colpack Written Letter of Commitment for Habitat Conservation Plan, EIS Strategic Plan Grant Request. Commissioner Olson.
Thank you. So this letter, do you each have a copy of it?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, I had a chance to
So
read it.
what,
Thank you.
what they're after was when things took a turn, let's say a downward turn with the Habitat Conservation Plan and the harvests were reduced. There was some discussion with Colpack and what do we do? And so it evolved into getting some kind of a study done, economic study, and in order to do that, to reference the impact, they were thinking that each of the four member counties could come up with $15,000, and then for $60,000, we could hire a consultant to analyze it and come up with some specific impacts and maybe recommendations for the four counties that would be collective across the region. However, as you know, since that happened, a number of things have happened at Colpack, and including the resignation of the director who wrote this particular letter. And there now is an interim director who was the assistant, and she's on a 6-month understanding while there's a search that goes on for the permanent one. There was also a number of questions relative to their budget that we've spent a fair amount of time working through over the past couple of weeks, and we have some more to go. There was also some other questions about their work plan and in things where I would say in not as crystal clear and a bit of disarray, more than I think any of us on the board realized. So what I would like to do, and I was actually, there was a meeting at 3 o'clock today, which I didn't go to, obviously. But I will call and get an update. I'm not even sure they had it because there were only 2 of the 4 of us on the executive board. So it could be that they had to push it forward sometime. I'd like to revisit this with Colpack and before we do anything. The big question that came to mind when it first came up is where would we get $15,000?
From the timber fund. So I talked to Rachel briefly about this since she couldn't be with us. So there's a couple different places we could, if we saw value in this. Timber fund would be one. The other would be potentially out of the lottery dollars for economic development work, since that's what Colpack does.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know if we're, if this is still on the table or not. Rachel asked, I thought, a great question. What would you do with this? And there's 2 pieces to it. One of them is the economic impact statement related to the Habitat Conservation Plan as it rolls forward. And as we continue to be in conversation with the state about the economic opportunity loss to the counties that came from the environmental opportunity for the state. I think it's helpful to have numbers in that as we have that conversation. But the other part of it was a strategic plan piece of this, which was looking to say, so where do we go forward as the environment changes, thanks to the Habitat Conservation Plan? Where does our region go looking forward? So I felt like there were some, this was a very brief overview, of course, but some valuable potential pieces to this for us to think about. But Doug, definitely agree that at this point, there's much to be determined about if Colpack is capable at this time of carrying out an economic study that would be of benefit.
And that's where I'm coming from. We did talk about some of those items, particularly the strategic plan and how this could be localized to the northwest part of Oregon. And I think there were even some names of firms that came up. But since the last, I'd say 60 days, there's been a bit of turmoil, and
Sure.
I can't tell you how many one-on-one conversations I've had with the separate board members sitting in my recliner at home or sitting in my car or something like that. And so I'm not at all comfortable that Colpack is ready to administer this.
Sure.
So I'd like to say, if we could push this off, say 2 weeks, and then take it up again, things may have fallen in line where this could happen, or it may not. Don't know.
Sure.
So
Sounds good.
that's my ask on that one.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, well, we have a few minutes left. Not, we can extend this meeting conceivably, but we have a few minutes left for the New Taste of Oregon donation solicitations. I think Debbie's going to talk to us about this. Okay. Oh, Isabel's on. Paul, do you want to just come up here and be with us? Okay. There's Paul in the back of the class, in the back row of the class.
So I'm Debbie Garland, board assistant to all of you. And I'm here about the upcoming Association of Oregon Counties conference. Oh, good.
Reinforcements are here if you need them. She's taking your chair at the back.
A highlight of that conference, as you well know, is the Taste of Oregon, the county product tasting. We'll be sending out letters. We get donations from 3 loyal supporters, and we'll be sending out those letters to them. And very soon, it will be on the agenda for 2 weeks from today, I believe. And so what we're looking for, Isabel and I have been discussing ways to sort of expand the diversity of what we present. We, have a table there for Tillamook County, and we bring those 3, loyal donors, products there and distribute them. And so we're just looking for ways to try to get more people on board, cold calls and just initial letters asking for for donations hasn't really been real productive. So we're just looking for your help in brainstorming some ideas I don't know why I'm nervous in front of you guys.
It just feels
It's the
so,
microphone.
it is. The room and the microphone makes it
Yeah.
feel very
I feel
formal.
like I'm in court.
65 people online.
Yeah.
Right.
So brainstorming for potential new donors and more creative ways to go about that. So
Okay.
that's what it's about.
So your ask of us is to think about what businesses we could approach
Mhm.
and ask them to prepare. What are the parameters? Like if we were talking about cookies, do the cookies have to be individually packaged? What are the parameters?
No, that we had that restriction during COVID where everything had to be completely separate and individually packaged. But to my knowledge, that's not the requirement any longer. I
Yeah,
mean,
because we just set the cheese out.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so Debbie and I are just looking to expand. You know, there's a lot of competition between the tables in different counties, and some
Mhm.
some counties really go above and beyond. And
Fun, Paul. This is the fun part of the,
right, I
you
was
better
just,
come up.
This
It's
is the
about
fun
food, it's about beverages.
Well, I
And
did enjoy
so-
it last year for sure. I thought it was a great evening and, you know, it was so regionalized. Obviously, you look to Tillamook, you say, well, somewhere you're going to get a handful of cheese and then maybe some other things too. And I know, think Lincoln County had some of Moe's clam chowder or something, didn't they? And
was a
And-
big hit.
Cups of crab.
Yeah.
Have an
Yeah.
oyster, somebody donating oysters or anything
We
like
had
that?
oysters a couple years ago.
That would be a good one.
They were a
Yeah,
big
because
hit.
J. Andy's normally pretty good for a donation for stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
any kind of smoked fish would be,
Yep.
like smoked salmon.
So that's on our list.
And they
We're
have
just
their
looking
smoked
for,
oysters too.
You know,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
input from people from Tillamook County. So in past years, we had the wasabi salt, which was a big hit. And we haven't approached them in the last couple of years. And we also had Jacobson salt. We had little
Mhm.
tins.
Yeah, those are,
And
good.
we had,
How many pieces
Dressing.
of things are we looking for?
sorry.
How many pieces?
Well, I think that the event this year is the largest and they're estimating 400 attendees. But we wouldn't expect 400 individual items. That would be a lot to ask, you know?
And a lot of tables have just a lot of things and a few of each.
Right.
So we tend to have like our 3 stalwarts where we have, feels like enough, you know, for everybody. But there are a
Right.
lot of, when you look at those tables, you know, someone could donate 50 or 100 of something and
Right.
that would work totally
We
to.
have the best table.
are
so
you
we
allowed
have
to do
lots of-
wine tasting or beer? Any kind of alcohol
So we
tasting?
have
Yeah, yes,
We have
lots
Pelican
of that.
beer, and they're
OCC permit, so I can.
they're extremely generous, Pelican. And they also give us the sparkle hops, which is
Oh, yeah.
non-alcoholic.
Really
and,
nice.
And
because
they're a
the-
huge hit.
A couple years ago, that we were there were only 2 non-alcoholic beverages on offer. 2, period. In the entire room, everything was
They had them at
alcoholic.
the Y auction. They had those
Right?
hoppy
Yeah,
seltzers.
and they're really good. Yeah.
So this year, the restrictions on the alcohol serving is down to 2 ounces.
Okay.
So it's
Tom
really
has
just a
her hand up,
taste
too.
that you're serving. So,
So is it supposed to be unique to a particular county?
Yep.
And I
Yes.
suppose that helps, but
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so we're just looking for some diversity. I
Sure.
mean,
Yeah.
instead of the. I
What
mean,
The point is
The
to
3
promote your
oil ones are
county's
wonderful.
products.
so the smoker, they've contributed?
so part of the layout is that in the past practice has been we don't have competing products. Like we don't have 2 beer companies, 2 cheese, and when we have Warner meats, so we promote those individually, but it would be that's just been past practice. We don't have competing
Products.
products.
Right.
But that's not to say we couldn't in the future.
Made that rule.
I don't know.
It seems like you'd
I
like it.
think the more smoked
Yeah.
meat, the better.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like if I were running one of those businesses, I'd want to get my stuff out there and say, hey, you know, yeah, I got 2, but we're better, you know.
Yeah.
But
Taste test.
whatever, it is what it is, but.
Yeah. I think Sean has a question. Uh-oh, we got a bad echo. We can't hear you. If you're talking to us, we can't hear you. Sorry. Something's happening. If you're in the building, please come join us, or you can put in the chat.
Oh, she went out. We'll see if she comes
Okay.
back. She didn't look like she was in the building. There was a window behind her.
So we have lots of smaller
Not in
businesses,
the
you know, in
basement.
Tillamook, and it doesn't have to be just food products, and we're just trying to expand it. It could
Right.
be other,
Yeah.
because a lot of the other county tables, sometimes they have little keychains or, you know, just
Hmm.
Stuff.
soap
Mhm.
and stuff like that that
Yeah.
people make. So it's just to promote these products. So it definitely does not have to be food related.
Okay. You want to try again, Sean?
Yeah, I'll try again. So what I was gonna say is I just had my conference here for our Treasurer Association in Tillamook County. I reached out to Nan at Tillamook Coast Visitors Association, and she put together some really awesome little goodie bags that had stuff, you know, as far as what to do in Tillamook County, a little, I think there was a keychain, there was some guides. It was really cute. But I would say reach out to Nan and see what she could
That's a
do.
good idea.
For Tillamook County.
Great
Yeah, that's a
idea.
good
Sean.
idea.
Nan every year donates the posters. She lets us borrow those posters you see. She provides us with brochures and leaflets and the annual magazine that
Mm.
they put out. But definitely she can, if she has keychains.
Bag.
Yeah.
Bag.
Have you ever worked through the Tillamook Area Chamber to see if they might be able to make some connections? There might be some new businesses they know of that would like to have this opportunity.
We actually reached out to them to see if they had any swag from the chamber,
Hmm.
and I think it was 2 years ago was the last time, and they didn't have anything to share. But looking at their list of businesses, it's a lot of the businesses that the products I was looking at today, they're already on our list, or because really it's just sort of retail products, you know, food.
Yeah.
And retail. There's a lot of other businesses that
Yeah. Is Salty Raven on our list? If we ever gotten anything from them, they have cool stuff.
I didn't see them,
I don't, yeah.
but it may just be they're not, or their website's not updated.
Look at to see if they want to donate. Is there one of these?
I don't think we have enough.
We have a list of what you would like us to try to get that we can maybe put online.
Yeah, we have a list here. Debbie and I just come up with just some ideas. We were talking about there's tuna in Garibaldi, there's canned tuna, and I know Lincoln City. There you had some canned tuna for them last year,
Yeah.
and that was a big hit.
Like a
s-
regular size can of
Mhm.
tuna, they're giving
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
away.
Really good
And
tuna.
it's like gourmet tuna. It's not. It's
Oh, yeah.
I know Garibaldi has some of that, and then I know there's a winery in Nehalem, and I think there's a distiller.
Yeah, a
in
distiller in
Vancouver.
Nehalem too, yeah.
And then we're thinking Rockaway Beach has a lot of bakeries.
Yeah.
Just we could have little cookies or something, yeah. And
Yeah, South County has some things too.
yeah, South County, you're probably familiar with them in the shopping mall, like the cold water coffee or the soap. They can make soaps and lotions.
He's down in the stucco.
Oh, yeah.
And the Stuckabee
The
cheese
creamery.
in Cloverdale. So we're just getting more feedback and ideas as to how we can expand.
What's
Um,
our deadline?
We're hoping to get the letters on the Board of Commissioners meeting on October 10th, did we say, or 9th? I think October 9th.
Yeah.
We have a
so-
week-ish to reach out.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 weeks.
And just to find out if somebody's, if they're, do you have any interest in donating something for this event?
Right.
Okay.
And then we could do the formal request,
Okay.
you know, if we need to follow up with a letter, so they have something. And a couple of times we've been asked to
Yeah, is it tax
provide a
deductible?
donation receipt, and
Right.
we, as a government, we can't do that.
Oh, okay.
So that's,
And somebody at AOC said they were changing that they used to let us do raffles and they're changing that. What,
Mm.
is there nothing that can be a drawing anymore?
not as far as I know. And I think last year was the first raffle that I saw, and it was huge. Everybody loved it. It
Yeah,
was-
everybody
it was-
stayed afterwards
Yeah,
because that's
yeah.
when all the drawings, so no drawings this time.
And Lincoln City really put everybody to shame. Their table was
Oh,
amazing, and
yeah.
they had
And the
really
food.
worked hard to solicit all those donations. And I'm not sure why, but the raffle, they're asking people not to do raffles.
Okay,
Again,
okay.
I think because it was a lot of music involved, and
Chaos.
it was,
Created chaos. Okay,
it was a little busy. But,
Okay. Okay.
So, but they didn't offer any alternative as to what you could do, for a
Right.
raffle.
What I noticed about the raffle tables, though, the counties that did raffles, is that they did raffles sort of like silent auction baskets or whatever. They did raffles rather than giving stuff away. So they weren't doing tastings really. They were just doing raffles. So
Right.
maybe they're just trying to get back to the tasting.
That would make sense. It'd be nice if you could do both.
It'd be interesting
Sometimes
to see.
the things that you could get donated aren't necessarily something
Right.
that sits on a table well.
Right. So what do we tell people about if we're asking for perishables like oysters, et cetera? How does it work?
Well, the oysters, it was 3 years ago, they actually brought them down. They had to stay, I think, to believe the vendor stayed overnight.
Oh, wow.
And there was a lot of ice involved. And that's the year when
A lot of
Governor
ice
Brown was there,
involved.
and so it was a lot of shucking.
Yeah.
It'd be labor intensive when
Yeah.
they do that, but if they're willing to, that'd be on them to. probably
Yeah,
do
Todd and
Maybe
Tamara
small-
have been really great about doing it in a lot of places. I don't know if they're still willing, if they've built, they built a heck of a business up, but
Maybe smoked oysters.
that's
That-
what I was
that
thinking,
don't-
smoked, because then they're just in the little containers and it's not so hard.
Don't have to be shucked and all
Yeah.
that.
So we're just trying to get the
Yeah.
creative thinking of, just to add to.
Cringing thinking about the conversation we just had with environmental health.
I know, could they shuck
Oysters.
oysters there? Is that gonna be against the rules?
Well,
Oh,
That's
the-
Land County's problem.
Is the way to go.
this is a special event where the hotel
gets a new
really,
toothpick.
Yes.
everything falls under the hotel, so,
mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
So are there refrigeration facilities
Mhm.
there?
there are, yeah.
Okay. So if we got something that needed to be refrigerated, we could, okay. We're not asking those folks to take their own, take their stuff.
Some counties have the vendor there,
Mhm.
like some of the winemakers are there and they're presenting the wine, talking about it.
Oh, they're having
tasting
their own
notes,
tabling. Okay.
But a lot of the counties, the commissioners are behind the table sometimes, and sometimes with staff, so it's a real mix.
I
kinda
would
set up-
volunteer for that job. I will help you if you'd like me to.
That would
I
be awesome.
Still
volunteered before,
Sparkle
you
House.
never take me up on it, but I'm still
Yeah,
volunteering.
we
be
could
awesome.
use all the help, but it's, as you know, it's a really busy event. There's a lot going
Yeah,
on
there's a
there.
lot going on.
And so we're just hoping to make our presence. We felt last year we didn't get as many donations as we'd hoped, and we were down to our basic staple or very generous donations for Warner Meats, Pelican, and Pelican and the Creamery.
Creamery.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to expand just a little bit on
We
that.
bring the cheese.
But we had Blue Heron a couple of years ago, and then they declined last year. But so we're just looking to fill in some spots that.
Drop
So if you
down.
have any ideas, just you
Okay.
can ship to Debbie and I, and we can follow up on them.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Great job, Debbie. Thank you as well. Great support.
It was hard for her to be in two places at once.
That's true.
Paul's leaving again.
Because the next thing's not probably food.
Okay, well, we are past 4 o'clock. Do you guys want to continue?
Yeah, I got a couple of things. Let me do them now or?
I have time, yeah.
Okay. Yes, please.
Okay, well, I think I mentioned this to Aaron this morning when we were visiting. We got our signs for our, the radio campaign. Unfortunately, they're for a solar installation in Minnesota.
What the heck? We sent you the wrong signs?
Yeah, they did. So I had a lengthy conversation with the factory today and they apologized and they said, well, and it's a long story, but make a long story short, the guy didn't exactly know how to run the machine. And so he put in a dummy order and it was a dummy order that was made again and shipped.
Oh, geez.
So
Okay.
anyhow, and they're evidently very automated. So once you put something in, that this outfit had purchased these things back in July, but he did it again. And so I got a case of the wrong kind. So we don't have to put signs out till the new ones show up. But anyway, so that was one. Then let's see, a couple of for Lightwave now, we've received the final number. And it's been adopted now by Lightwave Board, and also I was at the ports meeting this week, and they've adopted it. So it's all done. We now have a copy that has no draft written across it, so we can move on to other things in Lightwave now, including, and I think I sent your copy we'll have a conversation next month about where we are and where do we go as an organization, Lightwave. And then, depending on where that goes, then I would go to the college, because President Gerald sent an email back saying you're still very interested in the college. And so, it may evolve to that, but that's a little ways out, but things are moving, and we finally got this number put aside. So, and then next Wednesday, next Tuesday, we have our candidates forum at the Chamber in Pacific City, followed by a Forest Service meeting that I've set up. There's a couple of groups now that appear to be unhappy with what the U.S. Forest Service is doing in the Siuslaw. They are putting in a big giant trail system. And there's a group there and some individuals that think that will overwhelm the county and everything will go to seed, and it's pretty much the end of humanity. That's probably an exaggeration on their part, but that's so I said, well, my way to deal with this, they wanted the county to fix it. And I said, we don't have any jurisdiction at all over the United States Forest Service. But I can put the people in a room. So that's what I'm going to do, and put all these people in a room, let them talk about it.
Great, good.
And so we'll see where that goes, and it's informational only, but the Forest Service will have a display and talk about it. And then this group will give them some time, and then individuals can ask questions, and
That's
a
interesting.
good
Yeah.
time will be had by all.
I won't be able to go because we have a TBCC board retreat that day, but I hope that we can tune in to the candidates forum. Will it be remote?
No, it'll be in person, but we're
mean,
hoping to set it up, so yes, so people can go on, like here,
Yeah.
and hear what they have to say. And so when we're talking about some of the state measures, at least a couple of them, and then I'll do a presentation on our radio ballot, but it's primarily the candidates, and Paul's been to them before. We'll have the two unopposed, and then we'll have the two who have committed for House District 32, and then there's two people running for the Southern District, District 1 of the PUD.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I know about that because our board retreat for TBCC is that day, but Tamara Perman she's going to be at the event. She's going to be with you at the candidates forum. So she's going to attend our board retreat remotely. And so we said, well, if you attend the board retreat remotely, we will try to attend the forum remotely, and we'll be cheering from you
There you
for you
go.
remotely. So I hope that works out.
Okay, well, anyway, so yeah, that'll be next Tuesday.
And it's interesting what you just said about the U.S. Forest Service, because TORDA has been leaning on the U.S. Forest Service to get going on those trails through several different foresters. They made great strides with Deb Wilkes, and then she retired, and then somebody else. And so TORDA's been working on that so hard. And what I think I hear you saying is that they finally got some forward momentum, and now the neighbors are throwing up stop
Yeah,
signs.
the TORDA will be there. And I put them on the agenda already, and so the Forest Service, and then organized groups. And this other individual, and I won't name him here today, but he's got an ad hoc group of a number of people, and they think it's overwhelmed and going to be overwhelming, but that's an opinion. So we shall see. But I'm also both Sarah and Chris Lady will be there, talk about roads and impact, and they asked for the sheriff, and he politely declined. He didn't want to get in the middle of anything like that, and I don't blame him. And it's not a war. It's a civilized conversation about a significant development in the forest, and that's perfectly legitimate to sit and talk about it, because it will have an impact. How severe, who knows? And my whole goal on these things is just to be a convener, let people talk. When they're done, they can draw their own conclusions, and if they want to go beat up on the Forest Service, good for them. If they don't, then they're going to go forward. And my experience with the feds, they pretty much do what they're going to do, much like our conversation this morning. If they want to put windmills in the ocean, that's probably what they're going to end up doing. Maybe they'll you get some interference along the way. Anyway, the last thing, tonight I'm going to the Watershed Council annual meeting down there. So on the south one, I know they had one on the north end here not long ago. I think you went to that,
I
didn't
did
you?
not go.
You didn't make it, but. So anyway, that's all. I've just some things kind of going, and I did mention this morning now what's happening up Highway 6 now with the Amazon cable and what is down. That's really good news, because there's still a lot of people up there that are quite literally in the dark. They have no phone, no cell phone, and no internet unless they're doing something very creative. But it's they're basically in a wilderness, and they're an hour away from the largest population center in the state.
Okay,
So thank you.
thank you.
I've got one thing I'll bring back from AOC. There is under NACO is actually what it's under. And we've talked about, I think we may have talked about this in the past, but so there is something called the National Center for Public Lands that they're trying to stand up basically as a program of NACO. And it was really, and NACO's National Association of Counties, Paul, just in case. So it's been, what they did that really set everybody off was they just sent an invoice to the Association of Oregon Counties, broken out by how much each county should pay, and said, we want you to do this. Here's your invoice. And everybody went, time out. What? We don't even know what this is. We don't know why we'd want to be a part of it. So Commissioner Bethel actually had Commissioner DeGroot and Commissioner Cameron from Marion go and do a little bit more work on this to figure out what is this? Why would we want to be involved? Because what happened was that at a meeting of the Western Interstate region of NACO, Oregon was called out for being a bad partner because nobody was playing. Nobody paid their invoice. And so it was a kind of uncomfortable moment. So Derek and Commissioner Cameron from Marion went and said, tell us more about this. What is this? Why would we want to do this? Dig in a little bit. So it really is an opportunity that they're trying to build, which would have a couple of arms to it. One of it would be something similar to County College, but it would really focused on learning about the Endangered Species Act, learning about how to lobby for your public lands at the federal level related to challenges of the ESA. So it's really trying to get counties that have public lands together that are being impacted by things like, in our case, we have more states, so it's the Habitat Conservation Plan, but our federal lands were shut down long ago based on ESA issues. We get virtually no timber revenue. But it's really trying to say, okay, how do we as counties become better educated, understand the ESA, the Act, and how to lobby to try to reverse things that have happened or stop additional damage that could be happening. So that's one key piece of what this center would be about. The other piece is a research center, basically, to look and say, kind of like the study we were talking about with Colpack, but looking at the actions that have been taken on our public lands and what have the economic impacts been, and continuing to keep that research up and active. So there is an ask on the table for counties with public lands to participate in this by making a one-time payment. The one-time payment would be equal to 1% of the funding that we got under it's part of the ARPA money. So we got our big ARPA payment, you'll remember. And then there was this small ARPA payment that was related to us having public lands in Tillamook County. And I think for Tillamook County, and Sean's still there, maybe she could pull that number up. I feel like it was 2 payments of $325,000 or something, that the total of it ended up being around $600,000. I didn't have time before this meeting to ask. Sean, are you with us? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Vaguely.
Vaguely. I feel like it was somewhere in that 600,000, just like over $600,000 that we got.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so they're asking for a 1% of that back to help stand up this center for us to be partners across the nation. So the question is, for us, would we consider that? And then the other question is, could that come out of the timber money that Rachel was also suggesting for the Colpack, so that it wouldn't impact, actually, because I think we've spent all the ARPA money. So all of that ARPA money. Sean, that's another question for you. We have not spent all of that ARPA money.
So we have to allocate the $999,999 that we were using for the BLM building that we're no longer using for the BLM building.
Right.
So there's
What's our
that,
deadline for that?
the end of this year.
But this was the second tranche of money that came specific to having federal lands in our county. So we would have had that separately.
So yeah, that would have been separate. Yeah, that's already been spent.
Okay, so since it's already been spent for us, it would be finding another source if we were going to invest in this one time. So we need to look at how much that is, but if it was 600,000, we're talking about $6,000-ish. So I throw that out for conversation. It's interesting to me from the perspective of if we were able to take advantage of the lobbying education related to the Endangered Species Act, because it is impactful to us on the federal lands, but also on our state lands. So I think there could be a benefit to our community, as well as just that the economics. It never hurts to have numbers at your fingertips that actually talk about the impacts. So it feels like it could be beneficial for the small amount that we need to invest out of monies that are not general fund.
Thank you.
Mhm.
It's interesting that Oregon got whatever the word you used.
We got called out. It was apparently a pretty nasty meeting. Not unkind things were said about Oregon.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it was part of
It's
the,
fascinating that would happen in a meeting where they want our partnership and our money.
yes,
And
yes.
it's fascinating that if it was a really valuable thing, that we wouldn't have been that they wouldn't have marketed it to us, that somebody wouldn't
Correct.
have convinced us about why we wanted to
Yes.
be involved in PEG.
Yes, so it was interesting when Derek went back and had those conversations, he came away with a very different feeling. He was like, that is, but the same comments exactly, like, I totally love this idea, but I can't believe they didn't take the time to sell us this idea previously, rather than just sending us an invoice with, a 3-sentence email to Gina that said, this is for this thing, tell your counties to pay. So it is part of a larger effort that is being made through AOC to be more engaged in the Western Interstate region of NACO, because we really do have in some ways a different relationship with our federal lands than many other counties across the nation. Many other counties across the nation, their federal lands are national parks, right? And so it really isn't about industry and preservation and the struggle that we have with that. In a lot of cases, it's about maximizing tourism on those lands, or it's leasing of those lands for running cattle, that kind of thing. It's just very different than what we have with a harvest base on the North Oregon coast and across the Northwest in general. So it's a little bit different. And I think the other piece of it is, as this is going forward, wanting to make sure that at the Western Interstate region and at that NACO piece, that our voice is being raised up as well, that says, hey, you know what, we have a little bit different relationship to our federal lands, and you're missing the boat in being there and sharing our voice and making sure that we are at the table. So it's a fresh effort to make sure that we are on board with NACO, and NACO is on board with us and understands us. We had the executive director of NACO out, gosh, it's been a couple months ago that I ran into Salem for a dinner with him, just to the board of AOC met with him, the executive board met with him to just kind of say, don't forget NACO, we're out here on the other coast, and it was a great meeting, and, some to build some good understanding.
Half
Yeah.
of Oregon's federal land.
Yes. Yep. And it's federal land that's used. This is part of our economics that drive in this federal land. It's not a park for preservation. This is actually, an important part of what everybody does here, particularly our farmers, ranchers, and loggers.
Thank you. Anything else?
I think that's good for today.
Okay.
It's running late.
Paul?
What?
You have anything you want to?
I just have one thing. I will be on KTIL on Lisa's show on Monday to probably talk about the radio bond a little bit as well.
Well, on Friday, that'll probably be my main topic, because it's really my last session before the election. Oh, no, wait a minute here. No, yeah, because, no, there'll be one more in October. Well,
I've got a whole song and dance routine planned, so
You want
Well,
to
doesn't hurt
share
to
that
keep
with us?
mentioning
I want to see the dance part particularly.
it's radio. So anyway, that's all I got.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm eager to go.
Okay.
We're adjourned, 4:24. Thanks, everyone.
Paul, that's why we like to dance here, because we know